Okay.
Last Mark Standing podcast on SoundCloud and iTunes with your hosts, Damian SAWLTY G and the Marky SMARK Trina. What's up, Trina?
Hi guys. You're getting my
Again with
my post my post wrestling voice.
Is that what that is? That
It's
sultry
yeah,
voice is your post wrestling
it
voice?
is. This is a voice of attending AAW in Chicago on Thursday,
Hmm.
Rockstar Pro in Dayton on Friday, and then I had a wedding, which was super crazy because half of it was West African and they party really hard,
Hmm.
and so it's just like nonstop dancing and yelling and screaming and like having fun for 6 hours. And so now this is my voice, and I'm going to Raw tonight, and so I'll be pretty mute.
So basically, by tomorrow, you'll have no voice whatsoever.
Right, exactly. I'm saving the last of it for Last Mark Standing.
See, aren't we honored? See, we are honored to have the face that runs our place call in
There
sick
you
and
go.
still work. This is great. I appreciate that. So, folks, again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/ Last Mark Standing. Feel free. We have goals. We have aspirations. We have rewards you can claim if you put in $5 to $10 per episode or per month. Please visit patreon.com for details. So this episode is going to be more or less a continuation of what we were talking about in terms of fandom and pricing people out and who's a true fan. So
Mm-hmm.
Trina's going to let me have the floor for this opening stanza because I went to ROH in Brooklyn. I want to say last Friday, not this one,
Mm-hmm.
but the last
Yeah.
Friday that passed in Brooklyn at MCU Park. And let me just tell you, right up with NXT, that was probably the best wrestling show I've been to. And I
Right.
mean wrestling. I don't mean
Mm-hmm.
sports entertainment. I
Right.
don't mean
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't mean Raw. I don't mean SmackDown.
Pure wrestling. That's what I told you too when I went to Global Wars. It's just pure wrestling.
Yes. And from beginning to end, because they mixed in some TV tapings and things like that. It was one of the more enjoyable, not even wrestling events, just events I've been to,
Mm-hmm.
where me and my friend, Rick Castle, if any of you know from Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
he's my new wrestling accomplice and friend of the show. So we both seemed to enjoy ourselves, and he never saw Ring of Honor before, neither did I live, in this realm.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very beautiful thing to watch because the only disappointing thing, and I'll get to the rest of the card, was there was only one women's match.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I thought for me that was a little disconcerting. As a women's wrestling fan, for me to say, wow, ROH is one of the bigger companies in all of the United States, and they really don't have an established women's division, that gave me a little pause for cause. And
Mm-hmm.
the women's match was on the pre-show, as it were. It wasn't even part of the main card. So I don't know. That's the one major strike I could take from watching it off the bat. But the in-ring acumen overall. By the way, Trina, you're Dalton Castle.
Yes. Yay.
When he
Do
came
you want to be
out,
one of his boys? You want to be
no,
one
I
of the
don't want to
boys?
because they don't know how to sell. Because they look like they caught a gunshot and they all died at the same time just from a regular acai moonsault. And I'm thinking, wow, you guys look like you got hit by a 4,000 pound freight train, and it was nothing but a small impact.
Maybe it was just your show because the boys sometimes are always different.
Yeah.
Um, we're going to already start getting to this early, but I guess at PWG, the boys were Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. So
Oh,
those guys can
those are two
definitely.
dudes I would never have assumed would be the boys.
Oh, that's yeah, it was fantastic. So,
Yeah, because oh, O'Reilly.
hmm right, right.
Yeah, I wasn't kidding about O'Reilly, man. I'm
Hmm
thinking, who is this guy? We need more of him. I
Right.
need to see more of him in person because the
hmm
stiff, strong style in which
Yeah,
they were using was just, for me, because we all know
phenomenal.
it was phenomenal
Hmm
because I love me some strong style. So
hmm
I'm gonna quickly run down the card. It was called Field of Honor. It was at MCU Park.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited for you. I love it.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful. So Kyle O'Reilly, I mean, again, like I'm saying about him, but he went up against Shibata.
Hmm
Now, I've heard you talk about Shibata. I've heard Andrew from Metman talk about Shibata.
hmm
Seeing him work up close, and by up close, I was like 6 rows from the front. Dude, Holy shit! The
I love
strikes
it.
they were both using on each other,
I
I
know, right?
cringed.
They're gonna
I,
kill each other.
yeah, I was like,
Ooh,
oh, how do you slap a grown man like that and it's
yeah,
okay? It's like, how do you even work that match out in the back where it's like, yo, I'm gonna slap the shit out of you. I'm gonna
yeah,
chop you till you look like you're bleeding in your chest, and you're gonna
right.
no sell it. What?
Yeah,
I ain't no
yeah.
selling
Oh
that.
my God, I know.
I die
It's
in the stands,
amazing.
man.
It's
Yeah.
really amazing.
So he really impressed me.
Hmm.
ACH, I really am going to keep my eye on him because
Hmm.
his
Yeah.
athleticism and his nod to nerd culture because his shirts were Dragon Ball Z related, like the
Hmm.
merch they were selling.
Hmm.
So that appeals to me because if anyone,
I'm gonna cut in really quickly and just say that ACH actually does a lot of smaller shows.
yes.
So FYI, if you really want to see him, check out like maybe your local indie. He might be there. He does a lot of smaller shows. He's really cool about that.
So Dalton Castle went up against Kushida, and I love Kushida because I didn't think he was that comical to match Dalton Castle's hilarity,
His whole
but
thing.
they were both going back and forth with the boys. Like one had control of them for 1 second, then the other one, then you had the boys scampering around the ring, didn't know who to serve and who to fan. So they're all fanning everybody, and the crowd's just loving it. And I know I said I'm not a fan of the sports entertainment aspect, but the in-ring acumen combined with the hilarity made
Yeah.
it that much better, especially for a curtain jerker. When
Right.
you have a curtain jerker, you want something that's going to captivate the audience, bring them in, and set the tone for the rest of the show. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's going to be a 5-star classic. Other
Hmm.
times it's just going to be a comedic, 5 to 10 minute match where people are going to get situated in their seats and just get used to the show. It served its purpose.
Right.
I'm
Right.
definitely looking
It's
forward to
very
seeing him more.
it's very efficient, right? Like
Yeah.
it's almost to me better than like a backstage vignette with like awkward acting and like that sort of looks like the start of a porn or whatever. You know what I mean? Like I find what
Don't start
ROH
that.
does. I find what ROH does to be a lot more effective and more efficient. Because it tells enough of a story that you can get into the match, but you're not wasting time like watching backstage segments.
Right. And I think that's kind of the charm of it all, where you don't have to see or hear
Mhm.
backstage segments. By the way, is that you or is that me? Oh,
I
sorry.
don't hear anything.
I heard background noise. My bad.
Okay.
New headphones, folks. I'm pretty much like deaf except to Trina right now. So okay. Then we had the infamous Bobby Fish, who
Yes.
I likened to the indie Zack Ryder because I
Hmm.
feel as if he was wearing Jeff Jarrett's trunks, but he was channeling Zack Ryder.
Yeah.
Didn't really set the world on fire for me, even though a lot of people
No.
were telling me he was great. I'm thinking, he's all right. I mean, I don't know how much of him you've seen, but
Hmm.
didn't really knock my socks off. He went up against Evil, as we were saying. Really good back and forth stiff match again, but I just wasn't overly invested in the two. And by this point, we were 3 beers in, and it was just like, all
Yeah.
right, if you
And he's
can't
fine.
catch my attention, go ahead.
He's
Sorry.
hit or miss. I think sometimes like it's just fun screaming Bobby Fish. So, that's really I think like all we got here. Sorry. I go ahead, keep talking. I'm listening to you, but I might be turned because I got some tickets for people tonight for Raw and I just need to let them know.
Oh, do you
So
want to let them know
no,
on
go
air
ahead.
just in case they're watching?
Maybe, I don't know. Carl and Rob, I have your tickets and they're all three of them are under Rob. But I am that to you in just a second.
Sweet.
Oh, and
Look
Gabby,
at the
one
Marky
of our
Smart. Go ahead.
right, and Carl is actually going to give Gabby a ride.
Gabby's going.
Gabby is going. She has a ticket. She couldn't get a ride, so I hooked her up with Carl, who's going to take her, and so we're going to have 4 fans. Thanks to the Last Mark Standing going to Raw tonight.
Look at that. We're making
Yeah,
connections all over the place, folks.
right, exactly.
By the way, Girl Talk
Yeah,
with
so
Gabby. Really good show.
yes, very good show. Listen to her. So yeah, keep going. I can hear you. I'll just be looking this way.
All right. So what really caught my attention next after this intro to ROH was
Mhm.
Unbreakable Michael Elgin, and I've seen him in the past before, but watching him up close, and he was
Michael
working it.
Elgin.
Yeah, I love that guy. I immediately love that guy because he's built like Taz, but I just feel like he's more intense as far as his strikes are concerned. And there was about 4 buckle bombs. He went up against Dijak I don't like Dijak, if that's how you pronounce his name.
Really? You don't?
Nope.
A lot of people do.
All we saw was Ludwig Borga and Ivan Drago. That's all I saw.
Okay.
Nothing else. Like, he was a big dude who can move, and then we made the Vince McMahon joke that, oh, Kevin Dunn, I gotta sign him up. Oh, he's so big. Put him up against Big Cass and equals ratings. No, did nothing for me. But Michael Elgin definitely showed strength. A move that I'm not getting tired of, but some people have told me they're tired of, is the deadlift German suplex, because we've seen it, by Neville. We've seen it during the CWC, and now I saw it at ROH. But you know what? Not for nothing, I can't really deadlift much because of my knees and back. So to be able to see people actually lift another human being over their head with dead weight and put it in a German, that's pretty fucking impressive. I'm sorry.
Right.
That's impressive. So no matter which way you slice the banana, that's something to watch. Let
me throw in one really quick thing. Oh, are you done with the match?
No, go ahead.
No. Finish the match.
No, go ahead.
And then I will tell you about Michael Elgin, because I have a story about him.
So there was multiple buckle bombs done in that match where, surprise, surprise, nobody got hurt.
Right, exactly. I saw a lot of buckle bombs this weekend too.
Yeah.
I
And
know. And
I don't know. Is it more just fluke injuries off the buckle bomb, or is it really Seth? And again, you could tweet the show and let us know at Last Mark Podcast, at the Marky Smark, at Dare to be Damian. For me, it's just, no matter how much you practice, no matter how much you protect yourself against the move, there's ways to work around things. Maybe you have to land lower back on the buckle, like I saw Elgin throwing Dijak around. Dijak did the same thing. Their lower backs were hitting the buckle, not their upper spines, not their necks. So maybe they hit like the meaty portion of the buckle with their back, and that's why there's not that much injury. Or you just stop throwing Finn Balor on the guardrail. Maybe let's just not do that. I don't know. But again, let us know. Tweet the show. Let us know. Go ahead, Serena.
well, because the buckle bombs. So, okay. So the one with Seth and Finn was against the guardrail, which to me almost seems safer than some of the buckle bombs that I saw this weekend.
Okay.
One of the buckle bombs that I saw, I just felt like the guy's head got really close to hitting the post. Like he was a little high, and his head snapped back really quickly. Okay. And it's like if the back of his head would have been smashed by the post. And that one was freaky. I didn't know if anyone else saw it. The angle that I was at, that's where I could see it, and that's what freaked me out. And I'm just like, man, that move. I mean, I almost feel like it's not worth it. Like I get it. Like it looks good and whatever. It's a really devastating, powerful looking move, but I think there are too many chances for it to go wrong. Because I don't think any of the guys that I saw were working unsafe. It's just like momentum. You know what I mean? Like he threw him so hard against the corner and his head just snapped back like so hard. It was neither of their fault, and so it's like the move just might be a little too dangerous in that like there's too many chances for something to go wrong. Okay. I don't know. And the thing is, I actually think against the guardrail would be easier, because that's the thing. What I saw this weekend, I was just like, holy cow, that post would have like decapitated this guy. Like, he got really close to it. It was really bad. And they had hardcore at this match.
Oh, is that the one you were periscoping?
Let's see. Okay.
Okay. You all right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
As Trina tunes us out now, folks, let me keep going through the card here. Okay, I'm not going to give you a whole match breakdown, but these are the people that stood out to me. All right, again, Elgin stood out to me. The Young Bucks stood out. I don't know what the Briscoes gimmick is. Can someone please explain that to me?
Are they're like backwoods.
They're Wyatt Jace?
Yeah. Yeah, like Wyatt Jace, but like a different location. So like the Wyatts are like in one like weird forest or whatever, and then the Briscoes are in another one. Like the Briscoes to me are very like shysters. You know, like I get their gimmick and I kind of like it, and I kind of like them. So it's weird. I feel like it's probably a polarizing thing. Like either you get it or you don't, or you like it or you don't. Personally, I do. I really like the Briscoes a lot.
Oh, I didn't. It's not that I disliked them. I just didn't get the gimmick. I just wanted to know what it was. I wanted clarification because personally, I'm thinking they're Wyatt to Jace, and you know they were part of this tag team gauntlet, and then they had War Machine, who I immediately fell in love with. Like, They remind me of when you combine Eric and Rowan and Harper when they were doing their whole tag team dominance. With, I don't know if you remember what the Highlanders, you know, Rory and Robbie.
I love the Highlanders. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they reminded me of. And just, they're very athletic for big men. And I hate using the connotation for a blank, but there were moves being pulled out by all these guys involved that I'm thinking, there's no fucking way, man. How does someone that big move that easily? No. It's amazing now that you see...
You see a lot of guys like that.
Yeah, and you didn't see that 30 years ago.
Right.
20 years ago. Now it's more everybody's athletic in a sense. They have a modicum of athleticism, and I love that. And, you know, it goes to the sport aspect where you put your best athletes forward and you get to appreciate what you're watching a lot more. But yeah, War Machine definitely. The fact that Daniels and Kazarian are still wrestling after all this time... And this is my first time in years seeing Christopher Daniels live. And I'm thinking, yo, does he not age?
Yeah.
He looks the same.
He does. He does. You know what I like, though? I like having the veteran presence, though.
Yes.
You know, and they're super nice. Like if you go and talk to them when they're at the merch table afterwards, like it's just like you feel that veteran presence, you know, and it is weird that they're still there and whatever. But I like it, you know, like, and their gimmick now, like where they still doing this sort of like military-ish thing that they're I think
the addiction.
It's great.
Yeah, they're called the addiction, and
yeah, I like it.
I love it, especially with the double team maneuvers that incorporate actual tag team wrestling. And as older wrestlers, you know, age in the business, it's good to see them transition to tag team specialists, and it's not really a slap in the face. I think what it does, it prolongs the career for one. For two, it lets them incorporate potentially new moves or just new aspects to their character, new psychology. Because think back when Kane and Daniel Bryan were teaming up for Team Hell No, that rejuvenated Kane. He went from being a stale devil's favorite demon or whatever you want to call it to this tag team monster, sort of, you know, get the hot tag, demolish people, you know, and then tag out. And that's tag team wrestling. That's essentially Enzo and Big Cass right now. So like you said, going back to the veteran presence, to see the Motor City Machine Guns, that's another group. I was like, wow, they're still wrestling. Holy crap. And, you know, Kazarian and Daniels, I'm thinking I'm watching TNA back in 2007, when in reality I'm watching Ring of Honor. So no complaints there. Of course, the Young Bucks come out and start super kicking people. And I see them up close, and I agree with you. They look like mannequins. They look like...
From the back, you would think that they were chicks in like yoga pants.
Yes, they were yoga pant chicks, and they're built like Ken dolls. But for some odd reason, the Bucks work. I don't get it. I still don't. Again, don't come killing me, Twitter. But I love them in the Bullet Club. But if they weren't part of the Bullet Club, I wouldn't care as much. But seeing them super kick everybody, and then, you know, me screaming super kick, you know, and keeping my own counter, what was great. And they were right before the break, like their match hadn't even started. So, you know, then there's an intermission, and then we have a 6-man. By the way, just another nod to New Japan and the Bullet Club. Who is he? Where is he? Oh yeah, Yujiro Takahashi.
Yes. Takahashi. Awesome, right?
Pimp.
Yeah.
He's seriously a pimp. Literally, he is a wrestling pimp.
He is.
And
true.
I couldn't say anything. I'm like, this dude's a pimp. And my boy's like, no. I'm like, no. He's a wrestling pimp. And it works. I don't understand this. It's like The Godfather with talent.
Yes. Right. Exactly.
You know, and
no,
again,
it's fantastic.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then again, the Bucks were part of that, you know, that 6-man. with Hangman Page going up against ACH, Lio Rush, the Motor City Machine Guns. Like, it was good for what it was. ACH, I want to say he has more personality than Apollo Crews, but that's not saying much.
It's like he actually has like almost like a gimmick to use. That's why he has like more personality.
Well, think about it like this.
If the shirt is a gimmick and the hat is a gimmick,
yeah. He's what you get when you mix Xavier Woods and Apollo Crews, and that's basically ACH. If you want to meld two professional black wrestlers together, and I know people hate that, but that's for me. I'm struggling to be drawn in by Apollo Crews, so I know we've talked about it on previous episodes where we think it's best to have him and Titus O'Neil team up and call them Sugar and Spice, because they're both perpetually smiling, and then it just looks really awkward when they're trying to be mean. So we'll call them Sugar and Spice, and we'll have them feud with the Spirit Squad, and then that'll be that. I was not impressed by Adam Cole.
Oh.
I was not. And I wasn't the only one in the stands that night who wasn't impressed by Adam Cole.
Okay.
I saw Heath Slater mixed with Drew Galloway.
Okay.
Under the Bullet Club gimmick.
Did you feel like any swag? You know what I mean? Like did he have any gravitas?
Not as much as people make it out to be.
Yeah.
He's got gravitas, but it's not to the level of I'm so drawn in by his charisma that I can't stop watching him. I couldn't.
I hate to like reduce it down to like, oh, maybe it's just because he's like good looking or whatever.
No, it had nothing to do with that, because Tanahashi, love Tanahashi, love Naito. I couldn't take my eyes off those guys.
Naito's great. Yeah, it's tough. Maybe it's who he was in the ring with. I mean, is this the first time you were seeing some of these New Japan guys?
Second
You've
time.
seen them before.
Second and third time. Yeah.
And you were focusing solely on Adam Cole though to see like what the hype was about.
At first, yes, but then, like I said, Naito and Tanahashi just kind of drew me in, and it was one of those things where I'm not even looking at Adam Cole. I wasn't even looking at Jay Lethal after a while. It was just New Japan guys. Gotta start watching New Japan. This is awesome. Because it combines rock stars with pro wrestling, but done in a way that pays respect to the athletes that are actually in the ring.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. It totally makes sense. I mean, the thing is, when I went to, this is how little I knew about Ring of Honor when I went to Global Wars. And I feel really bad for big Ring of Honor fans that I got to go and didn't even know anything about it. I didn't even know that they were cross promoting with New Japan. Really? So I had no idea that I was going to be seeing all these like New Japan wrestlers that I'd heard about, like I'd only heard about, and I thought I had to go to Japan to see them wrestle. And so like when I saw that they were there, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like it was, so my first Ring of Honor experience was really just like otherworldly, because I mean, first of all, Ring of Honor is just an amazing, great experience. It's totally different from WWE. And I ended up seeing people that I thought I would never see in my entire life, life. So it's just, it's fantastic. If you have a chance to go to one of these Ring of Honor shows, because I loved it so much, I went to a regular house show, and it was just as good as Global Wars, which was a pay-per-view.
Yeah, see, mine was considered a house show, but it was part of a TV taping. So the energy, like I said, the energy in the building at first was kind of lame, and I'm going to start taking fans to task again because it's what I do. But things I didn't like. Ring of Harambe chants. Why the fudge are we still talking about Harambe at wrestling events?
Did you hear that sigh?
Yeah, I heard the sigh. I watched it happen, and I'm thinking, shut up. Actually, you know what? Let me move it up a little bit. The 2 minutes to shut the fuck up that I normally say for the end of the show, we're doing it now. The Ring of Harambe guy gets 2 minutes to shut the fuck up, as does ROH douche guy, who is akin to NXT douche bro, that was sitting all the way up in the front and was just trying to start chants on his own to get himself over. And again, we're going to segue into, using chants the right way to get wrestlers over. This was the wrong way. He was screaming, yelling, but just being obnoxious to the point where my section was booing him.
And he was in the front row?
And he was in the front row.
Oh, God. And did you notice like anyone around him trying to like stop it or like?
No, he had his little cheering section, but the vast majority of fans who were in my section, they didn't give two shits about that guy, honestly.
Jeez.
So
Yeah.
Ring of Harambe dudes, because we heard them at the beginning, and then after 10 minutes of them screaming Ring of Harambe,
Jesus Christ.
they were not heard from until the end of the show. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't deal with them. What else I didn't like? I didn't like, again, that there was only one women's match on the card. That bugged me.
Yeah.
I do have a thing for Mandy Leon. I don't know why. I just saw her and I'm thinking, wow. Yeah. And I read up on her and then I realized she just started wrestling a few years ago. So it's like the opposite of the Bellas, where they were models, then divas, then became wrestlers, whereas she was an interviewer and that said, fuck it, I'm going to go to wrestling school. And now
I'm going to
train. And she's one of the women of honor. So congrats to her.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
People work hard. I mean, people are living the dream these days. This is what we've talked about in previous episodes. It's like, whatever you strive for, more than any time in history, you can make it happen now.
Right.
There's so many avenues.
There's one thing, go ahead. And if there's one thing that the Last Mark Standing podcast likes to do, is we like to quote unquote chase our dreams and encourage other people to do so.
Yes.
So, hey man, more power to anyone else who's chasing the dream. It doesn't matter if you're making $5, $2, $1, as long
no
as
dollars, zero dimes,
zero dimes. But you're doing what you love. So I have an appreciation, and I know Trina does too. But that was my foray into Ring of Honor, and I can't wait to go back. I was tempted to recruit my friend to go with me in September to a show in Buffalo or by Buffalo, but he deemed it a little too far of a drive.
How far is the drive?
7 hours.
That's actually a little far for me too. And you know how far I go.
I know. And I'm like, well, I could take a plane. It's only an hour.
It's true. No, but I mean, if anything, look, because they just did their last pay-per-view in Vegas. Like, I mean, they do interesting places where you could justify going just for like vacation. Like, I know they'd go Toronto, and I'm sure there'd be like cheap flights from New York to Toronto that you could get and do it there. I mean, it's fantastic. I'm so glad you had a great time because Ring of Honor to me has been one of the many, many revelations of 2016. I'm a huge fan, and I encourage everyone, if they can, to go to a live Ring of Honor show and show support. And all you see is just pure wrestling. For the most part, you see a respectful audience that's different than the WWE audience. And you just see like pure telling that's very efficient and effective and good wrestling. So there's good wrestlers over there. I wonder though, for all the people that I love in Ring of Honor, I wonder what are the chances that they ever make it to WWE, specifically Dalton Castle. I love him and he has a huge fan base. I don't, what do you think? Do you think he could ever make it to the main roster?
No. Well, let me preface it like this. If he did, they'd have to really tweak the gimmick to be more Brazongo than what he's doing, because that's a totally different avenue to take, to have manservants, and they're fanning you.
It's so good.
I know it is. I love it. But at the same token, family-friendly television won't allow that to happen.
I mean, I don't know. Like, what if you just tell the kids that it's totally innocuous? Like, it doesn't mean anything. We're injecting like weird sexuality to it.
Okay, it's scantily clad men in banana hammocks fanning another grown man. You don't think people are going to be
because he's their like king, and they're like the village people or whatever, and that's how the village people dress, and
So make it more regal. I think that's the way to put him on the main roster.
There you go. Well, and the thing is, what I've thought is he probably could go over at NXT.
Oh, definitely would go over at NXT,
but only NXT. Like it's not like a main roster gimmick, but I think he would definitely go over. And the thing is, I don't even know if he cares. He might be one of these Joey Ryan guys where it's like he's content where he is. Like, not everybody's goal is to make WWE. I think we need to remember that sometimes. Joey Ryan is one of those guys, very vocally has said he prefers the indies. He prefers working the indies. He likes that style more. He likes that business style more. So you're never going to see him in the WWE. So, we always like hope for the wrestlers that we like on the indie scene that they make it to WWE, but don't always automatically assume that that's what they're aiming for. So,
right. I personally agree that he stands a better chance to be on the indies and stay there and make a great career for himself rather than sully himself with WWE creative, at the reins. So
I know. I mean, because his fan base is very, very loyal. I mean, it's to the point where because there's a Dalton Castle shirt that looks like the Jurassic Park shirt, like symbol or whatever. And now I've seen so many Dalton Castle Jurassic Park type shirts that when I see one, I think it's Dalton Castle and not Jurassic Park. So I saw some guy walk down the street and I was like, oh, he has a Dalton Castle. Oh, it's Jurassic Park. So, I'm too used to seeing too many Dalton Castle shirts, but this is a good way to go into our next point, because like I said, some guys don't necessarily want to go to WWE. Some of them want to stay on the indies. Yeah. And so it's our job as fans to show them support at every level that they're at, whether they want to stay there or they want to move up. I think supporting wrestling at every level is the only way to help everybody improve and get to where they want to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've spent the last 3 or 4 days going all over the country, watching indie events, watching wrestling, soaking it all up. What are some of your highlights of this trip?
Yeah. Again, I'll preface it because I did on Twitter. I had a business trip planned that went into a personal trip. I had a friend's wedding and I scheduled them, the friend's wedding just happened to be in Ohio, and then there happened to be an AAW show on Thursday. And so I asked my boss if that's the day I could come in to work. And so that's how I did that. So I finagled that way. And so I went to see AAW in Chicago. And I would liken AAW, you guys hear me talking about it a lot, honestly, to probably PWG out in LA, in Reseda. This is the level of talent that they have at AAW shows, every AAW show. Zack Sabre Jr.'s there, Marty Scurll, you're getting the top level guys that you heard about at Battle of LA this weekend at AAW, at every show. And they put on a show every month.
Let me ask you a question. I've never heard of Marty Scurll. Mm-hmm. For those that don't know who he is, how can you sum him up for me?
He's this is a weird shot, but so he's British. He's a villain. He comes out in a fur coat with a cane, and he's just think what is that movie with Robert De Niro where he has the mohawk, where he's a crazy bad guy?
Taxi Driver.
Is there another one? Either way. So he think cinematic bad guy, action movie bad guy. And that's Marty Scurll. And he's stays in gimmick all the time. He's really mean to the audience. And he's just your typical villain. Very charismatic, super nice guy in real life. When you're talking to him at the merch table, when I went to go buy the shirt, the guy that was in front of me, Marty spent probably 15 minutes with him because the guy had seen every show that Marty had wrestled and just went through the history, and Marty was super, super nice about it. Just really great with the fans. So I have nothing but respect for Marty Scurll. Great wrestler, great gimmick, great guy overall. But so the point I'm trying to make is that I think if you were on wrestling internet this weekend, you saw all the posts and the hashtags about BOLA 2016 or PWG's Battle of LA, which takes place once a year during Labor Day weekend. So it's a 3-day event, and you're pretty much getting the who's who of indie wrestling, the top stars of indie wrestling, all in one place. For that one weekend. You don't get them all 3 days. I saw some guys Thursday night in Chicago and they were flying to LA for the second show. But over the course of 3 days, you were able to see the best of the best in the indies. Part of the problem though, for me, is that the venue that they hold the Battle of LA is a tiny little place in Reseda, California, which is outside of LA. And every year tickets sell out. I think this year they sold out in less than 2 minutes. And so like even, you know, I have a friend who lives in Reseda and he couldn't get tickets. He wasn't fast enough to get tickets. And so you have people flying in, you have some of like the internet wrestling elite who are at this show. David Shoemaker's usually there. Ryan Satin's there. So it's just,
I saw a picture of Shoemaker there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very special thing, you know, and obviously if you are a dedicated wrestling fan, specifically a dedicated indie wrestling fan, it's like the dream, you know, it's going to Disney World. It's your dream come true. So my problem was though, is that you had a lot of people tweeting from Reseda, haha, I'm here and you're not. Like, if you're not here, you need to make it here. You know, make it the goal of your life to make it here. And I'm like, I just don't find that to be the sentiment that I want wrestling to be about. Because to me, wrestling is very inclusive. It's not exclusive. It's not elitist. It's not haves versus have-nots. Mm-hmm. And that was the feeling that I got from this weekend. You know, and it's funny because like to the point where some people didn't even really understand what I was saying, because I was trying to point out like not everybody has the means to, even like me, I'm a 1%er. I will fully put that out there. Full disclosure, I am a 1%er. I have the luxury of like flying to shows or going to shows or driving to shows. I don't have any kids. I have enough disposable income to do this kind of stuff. And so I'm one of the lucky ones, but I would have to say that the majority of fans aren't that lucky. And they may never get the chance to ever go to Battle of LA, let alone a WWE event, you know? So it's, and WWE events are a lot more accessible than something like Battle of LA. There's usually at least like a house show or an NXT something coming to your town, you know, no matter how small it is, at least an hour away, you know, like for everything that WWE is, it's definitely not exclusive. It includes everybody and it's very accessible. You know, wherever you are, like they're going to put a show on and you will be able to go.
Isn't the whole point of indie shows supposed to be inclusive?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes. And I say that, and then people are like, well, that's just the way it is. You know, like PWG can't afford to like go to a bigger venue. How could they, you know, like, and my argument is, then let's change whatever the rules are, whatever the way that it is, because there are other organizations out here who are doing it differently and who are putting on shows that are the caliber of Battle of LA, PWG, and they are being a lot more accessible. And AAW is definitely one of those organizations. They have, like I said, they have a show every month, sometimes twice a month. The show that I went to on Thursday was a little bit difficult to get into, and because it was at the Berwyn Eagles Hall, which was where I did my indie debut. It's a really small place, and I did see a couple of comments on their Twitter page of devoted fans who were pissed off that they didn't get tickets. Right. And so this is, you know, I think this is what's going on. We have certain organizations now that have been so elevated that you like have to be like in the 1 percentile to get tickets to it. And it's like, that sucks. Like, that's not what wrestling's about, you know? And so I had trouble like trying to find like, what's the solution here? You know, like, and I think there are a couple different things that we can do. I think like, first of all, you know, the wrestling elite, when I talk about the wrestling elite, I say like, you know, the Ryan Satins, you know, David Shoemakers and all these different things. Like, it's great that you get to go to PWG and it's great that you review it and tell us how amazing it is, but give equal time to other smaller organizations. Don't elevate one organization as the be all end all of indies, because there's so many other organizations out there doing amazing work that, you know, people can afford to get to, that are in their backyard. You know, like you wouldn't think that like some of the best wrestling that I've ever seen in my life would be in Dayton, Ohio, but I saw some of the best wrestling in my life in Dayton, Ohio this weekend at Rockstar Pro. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's so much going on in indie wrestling, and I know we're all new to this. Like Damian and I, full disclosure, we didn't watch any indie wrestling before this year, and Damian's done some of the others, New Japan, things like that. But in terms of like full-on indies, like PWG, he had never heard of PWG or Battle of LA.
I've never heard about Battle of LA before this past couple months when Cody Rhodes was signed to go. So
right, and so I think. Going back to the beginning, I think we are in a different time. 2016 is a different time for wrestling. The internet has changed the game. It's made it so that people like Damian and I can do a podcast like this. It's made it so that people like us who are smart fans are learning about organizations like PWG and wrestlers out in like Dayton, Ohio, things like that. Like information is traveling very quickly now. We're being more informed. We're getting more informed very quickly about stuff that's going on in the wrestling world. And so what's happened is that it has created a bit of elitism, because you have some wrestling podcasters with like 100,000 listeners. People like listen to their every word. And they are God and things like that. And so, and they talk about something like PWG as the one thing you have to do in your life. And you have like 100,000 people or whatever listening to that and deciding like, this is the thing I have to do, even though they can't afford it or it's not realistic or whatever, And so we have an elite and this goes back to what Tim Kale says. We almost have a bit of a hipster culture within wrestling developing.
Agreed. How I framed it before we came on air, I framed it where it feels as if we're having some sort of wrestling civil war between, again, this goes back to the terminology of real fan, which in itself is subjective, with corporate fan. And by corporate fan, I mean guy that goes to get themselves over, or woman that goes to get themselves over, not really invested in what's going on in the product or in the ring. They're just there to either A, be seen, or B, troll.
Yes.
There's no happy medium. So when we're talking about, Battle of Los Angeles and how you framed it, as far as I'm concerned, that is the epitome of hipster civil war in terms of wrestling, because it seems like that's not to go see the event.
Yeah,
that's the place to be seen.
To be seen, exactly. And
I
definitely saw like, it is. It's a little weird, Like I did see pictures of fans and stuff taking pictures with internet personalities, and they posted more pictures of that than they did of the actual wrestling.
That bothers me.
And they were like, "Look, I'm here with David Shoemaker. He's like 4 rows in front of me."
Well, goody gumdrops for you, bro. All right.
Yeah, exactly. So it's weird. Like we just got to be careful here. We can't make those people not be that way. Some people are just star fuckers, and that's what they want. So I really hate to use that term, but it's true. And then there are legitimate fans, who are just going to go to something because they enjoy wrestling. But I think there are people that in the machine that can help make the disparity a little bit less, and so that's why Damian and I encourage other podcasters. We want to start supporting other indie organizations. We want to help support the indies, support indie wrestling, #support indie wrestling, because we might have missed the boat on the Kevin Steens and the El Genericos, but there are plenty of guys out there, plenty of talent, girls and guys, who are wrestling in independent organizations around the country, who are just starting out. And I guarantee you will be either in the WWE or Ring of Honor or wherever in New Japan within the next couple of years. So now is the time to start supporting your local indie wrestling organization. Find out like who it is. You might not even know, some are really, really small. I think if you guys have been listening to our show, that I did my own indie debut back in April for Anarchy Pro. It's very, very small, and in terms of like, if you want to go with like size, it's probably the smallest indie that I've either gone to or worked for. Something like Rockstar Pro in Dayton is a little bit bigger. And then AEW is huge. Like PWG size, in terms of like the star power that they draw, in terms of like the fans and things like that. And so there are all sorts of levels of indies here. You know, everyone starts somewhere, like, you know, one person sweeping the floor, someone's washing the dishes, someone's the maitre d', you know. So you just gotta, I say, support every level of indie wrestling you can. And let's like create other PWGs out there. AAW is right on the cusp. I think AAW within the next year will be the PWG of the Midwest. And so that'll give people who can't make it out to California a chance to see that caliber of talent closer to their house. The guys that were sitting in front of me at AAW drove from North Carolina for the show. Like a bunch, 5 or 6 of them, 14 hours from North Carolina to see this show. So, I mean, I know, like, you know, it's tough. Like, not everyone can make it to California, but like maybe there's something that's close to you. If I would tell people to make it out to Dayton and just go see Rockstar Pro. I mean, Sami Callihan was wrestling on Friday, and he just wrestled in AAW on Thursday, and then on Saturday went to PWG. So some of these smaller places are going to have the big stars. You just have to pay attention. And so that's what I'm talking about. Like, support these like smaller places, and we'll get bigger stars there, and we'll help promote a lot of these up and coming guys.
Well, that brings up a good point for me to make also. For those, I am not in the 1%. I am strictly, I am not as fortunate to be able to just pick up on a Tuesday and go to a wrestling show. I wish I was, but, you know, I do, you know, I kind of can't, because, you know, my job won't allow me to do that, being that
your patients need you, Damian.
Yeah, my clients need me, and so does my staff. So I can't just be like, yeah, screw you guys, I'm going to watch wrestling. But if any wrestling promotions on the East Coast, specifically New York, New Jersey, the tri-state area, if you want to let me come to your show, I will gladly pay to go to your show. All I ask is that you let me talk about your show on our podcast, on The Last Mark Standing. This way we can drum up promotion for you. This way Trina and I can pump you and sing your praises, because if
put you over.
Yeah, put you over. If you want to be the next PWG or AAW or Anarchy Pro or something of that ilk, I am more than invested to go to I remember the old Elks Lodge in Queens when ECW, you know, used to run out of there. I used to go there all the time. Love that place. So if there's any armories or anything like that in the East Coast or in the tri-state area, like I said, I will gladly go. I will gladly sit with the fans. I will gladly critique matches. I will watch. I will invest myself, and I promise you, I will not be the douchemonger taking photos of, hey, mom, look where I'm at now, just so I can brag to my 5 followers on Twitter that I went to a wrestling show. Yes, I do broadcast when I'm at shows, but what do I always say when I broadcast? I always say, hey, it's your man Damian SAWLTY G from the Last Mark Standing podcast. Not, hey, Dad, look at me. I'm at an indie event. Look who I met. I met Sam Roberts. Shut up.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. I will go to watch the matches and enjoy myself and eat some food, because, you know, that's what I do. But
cheap beer.
Not even beer. Just give me cheap food that's not going to kill me the next day. I'll be fine with that. And if any wrestlers want to come on the Last Mark podcast, we will gladly pump up your character. We'll gladly interview you before your show. Trina and I are very welcoming and very loving, even though we do suffer from social anxiety. I will gladly shake your hand and give you a high five and a too sweet. So I just want to put that out there for anyone watching, anyone listening, that if they know anyone who's a promoter who wants to put on a show, I will gladly go represent the Last Mark podcast. You know, I know Andrew goes to Evolve to, you know, represent Matt Men. You're going to AAW. I feel like I'm left out of the loop, so I want to go too now. So
definitely go to Evolve when you have a chance.
Yeah, I think that's something I'm going to bring forward to Andrew if he wants to go to Evolve, and you know, I'll come through. But this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm starting to love about pro wrestling again. I don't even care for WWE. I don't even care for SmackDown or pay-per-views. Just give me good action. And don't get me wrong, there are some wrestlers out there that still need a little bit more seasoning in wrestling school, because they're not as fluid as you would hope they would be at this stage of their careers. But you know what? Like you said, somebody's got to wash the dishes, right? Somebody's got to mop the floors, and somebody's got to sell tickets. And sometimes at these events, these guys do all of them. They do
They
all
do.
three.
They
And
really do.
so
This is
support them.
true.
Support them.
Support. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And what to Damian's point, please tweet us if you know of a show. That's pretty much the only reason I've learned of any of the shows that I've gone to this year, any of the indie shows, because fans have been nice enough to say like, hey, my favorite, my favorite indie has a show this weekend, you should go. These have all been fan suggestions. Someone's like, hey, Joey Ryan's going to be at Anarchy Pro, go see him. I ended up going to Dayton on a suggestion because it's like, hey, Sami Callihan's actually gonna wrestle in Dayton on Friday, and I was gonna be in the area. So it was a suggestion, and so please support indie wrestling and encourage your friends to help support it too. If you're gonna go, like, have someone tag along, like, get extra tickets. This is what we're doing, actually. The Last Mark Standing is doing for the AAW events on 10/7 and 10/8.
Right.
We have one extra ticket for each show. And we're hoping to take someone along, a loyal fan, a loyal patron of the Last Mark Standing, and get them to experience AAW for the first time. So, just share the love and try and get people to go and see indie wrestling, because they might just fall in love with what they've seen. I think I might have to start talking about Rockstar Pro now, because I'm like already getting ready for it.
I feel like you're withdrawing now because you haven't been to Rockstar Pro. So it's like, I need to go.
Okay, I need to talk about it. Okay, so I went to AAW on Thursday, and I knew about AAW already. The guys that lay at the mat were the ones who introduced me to AAW, and obviously you guys know how much I love it. I got to meet like a ton of the wrestlers. Zack Sabre Jr. It was Tommaso Ciampa's last match, and so he was really nice. Michael Elgin, let me just say now, is super, super nice and makes his own food. He's a very good cook. He gave me his meatloaf recipe at AAW.
Did you try to cook it yet?
No, because it's like super paleo. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. So
I'll eat it. I don't care. Send me.
I know.
I need to drop a few pounds, 4 pounds a pound.
Tweet at Michael Elgin to share his meatloaf recipe, because it's super healthy. It's the perfect meal, like, for anybody that's like trying to cut weight, whatever. That's how he gets his like strength from, is from that meatloaf recipe of his. So that's AEW. That's how it is, like big stars, like fantastic. And one of the guys there was like, hey, I'm actually wrestling Sami Callihan tomorrow night for the championship. I'd never heard of this guy before. He just like introduced himself to me out in Ohio. And I was like, oh, that's funny. I will be in Ohio. And so Dave Christ told me I should go to Rockstar Pro if I was in the area.
What are you doing?
It's fine. It's totally fine.
All right.
It's totally fine. So I tweeted at Rockstar Pro, and I bought my tickets. I paid for them. They didn't comp me any tickets. They just were able to save me a seat. And I got the chance to go to Rockstar Pro on Friday and had the most amazing time of my life. One of the best wrestling experiences that I've ever had. And I'm going to tell you guys how it differs from some of the other indie shows that I've gone to. Something like an Anarchy Pro in Berwyn at the Berwyn Eagles Club, you're not going to get so many hardcore fans. What you're going to get is locals who, this is what they do on the Saturday nights in Berwyn. They go to like the wrestling show. They know the wrestlers, but they're not necessarily wrestling fans. They don't really know what they're looking at. They're just there to see a show. Something like Rockstar Pro is somewhere in the middle of Anarchy Pro and AAW/PWG. What I saw at Rockstar Pro was very, very loyal fans who go to every show, every month, every week, same people. It's about 100, 125 people in the same room. When I was in line to get in the door, 2 guys in front of me had chairs, and I was like, oh, is there going to be a hardcore match? Like, I was just joking, like, or did you bring those for the hardcore match? Because Anarchy Pro, you can bring props for hardcore matches, by the way. It's totally fun.
Sweet.
And so they were like, no, actually, sometimes they run out of seats, and so we bring our own chairs. And I was like, that's amazing. Like, he's like, yeah, like they fill in a certain amount of people, like they fill to capacity, and sometimes there's not enough chairs. And so sometimes you just have to bring your own chair. And so already right off the bat, I was like, okay, this is like already pretty interesting. And the 2 guys that were in front of me in line were really happy to talk to me about Rockstar Pro and what I'd seen before and what my experience with wrestling was, like very, very open, like great wrestling fans. You know, we're not talking the dudes who like don't talk to me at wrestling stuff. Like these guys were like very happy that I was there, and then very happy to share how great Rockstar Pro is, for sure. And so right off the bat, great experience. So I walk in the door. It is just like a gym, pretty much. Pretty small. I would say half the size of where Global Wars was. So bigger than a Berwyn Eagles hall, like a Knights of Columbus hall, but you know, smaller than what Ring of Honor would take place in, which you just went to a Ring of Honor show, so you know what I'm talking about in terms of size. So it was very packed, you know, 125 people, and they're very, very packed. But you knew right away that everybody there was a regular. Like, it's like everyone had an assigned seat. Like, this is where everybody sits every month when they do their show. These are the people that heckle. And like, I sat down next to a kid who was probably 10, 11 years old. Super cute, super nice kid, super into wrestling, told me right off the bat who I needed to watch out for. He goes, I love Desmond Alexander. Desmond Xavier. Sorry, Desmond. Desmond Xavier. And you need to watch out for him because he's really good. And then he was telling me about Dave Chris and Sammy Callahan and all this different stuff. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, I love finding a kid who is this invested in indie wrestling. And I told him I had a wrestling podcast. And he goes, really? And I go, yeah, I cover the positive side of wrestling. And he was taken back. He was like, what? And I was like, yeah. But he's like, there's not a lot of positive wrestling podcasts. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. And he's like, I can't believe that you do that. And he's like, I'll go subscribe. And so it just, you know, it left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, because I'm like, look, this kid has such pure, unbridled passion for indie wrestling, for wrestling. And all he hears on podcasts is negativity. Like, I don't want his passion and love of the sport to be destroyed because there are adults who are like just too unhappy with their lives, or you know, like just want to complain about stuff. And so that is what sparked that 3 a.m. post. If you guys follow me on Twitter and Instagram, that I wrote, because this kid was a super fan, smartest, greatest kid. And he had never heard a positive wrestling podcast before.
So do you want to expound a little bit about that post and what it means to you, and the origins beside the kid?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little, it's complicated. It's complicated because having gone to AAW the night before and then going to Rockstar Pro, two very, very different experiences. And I have to say, Rockstar Pro treated me like family, like right off the bat. Like, this is what you're getting when you go to a show that is smaller than like an AAW or a PWG. You know, like I told them I had a wrestling podcast, and so they tried to get me a really good seat so I could, you know, because I was like, yeah, maybe I could give you guys some press or whatever. And so they tried to give me a good seat, you know, super, super accommodating. Again, when I got there, super loyal fans. You know, these fans are at every show. They're there all the time. You know, and then like at AEW, the difference is that like I had access to a lot of bigger names, but you know, it kind of felt like less familial. Like, it felt more like this is just a show. Like, I'm a performer, you're a fan, like whatever. You know, whatever you say to me is gonna leave my brain in like the next 5 seconds after you walk away. The difference is if you go to something like Rockstar Pro, you go and talk to one of the wrestlers there, and like they're giving you their business cards, they're listening to everything you're saying, they're making you feel like you matter as a fan. And so I felt the need to just point out that I felt a difference between the two experiences, where one, you know, really made me feel like I was respected as a fan, and then the other was just like, you're just like you know, you're a seat, you're just like a person in a seat, or sometimes you're just a pretty girl who just happens to be here. And so I felt like in one arena, I was taken more seriously as opposed to in another one where I wasn't necessarily. And you know, that's not a knock against AAW. It's just the way that the business is, and me as a girl, as like an attractive girl of color, I'm going to get that everywhere. And I've seen proof of it in the fact that I have asked probably 10 to 15 wrestlers that I've met for interviews, people in the business for interviews for the Last Mark Standing, and I have yet to have one fully commit to it and actually come on the show. You know, I'll meet them in person, and I realize that some of them are just talking to me because I'm a pretty face. That's what I realized today. That they may not even be listening to what I'm saying. The fact that I have a wrestling podcast might not even register to them. And that's what I found out this weekend. So that's what spurred that post. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting because one day we will have a guest on the Last Mark Standing. And when that person does give us the courtesy of following through with our request and treating us like professionals and taking us seriously, it's going to be a great day. So looking forward to whoever that first guest will be. Because I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of great people. I don't begrudge any of these people that I've talked to. You know, sometimes their schedules are just busy, but I've talked to a lot of people and I have yet to have one follow through. I've emailed, you know, like I've communicated with them in the way that they asked me to communicate with them. Because a lot of them are like, oh, send me a DM or like email this address and we can schedule something, you know? And then, so I do. So I usually start by sending our podcast. I'm like, hey, I met you at this event. I'm that girl that was talking about whatever. This is our podcast. We would love to have you on. Please give it a listen and let me know if you would be interested. So I'm not being pushy. I'm just saying like, hey, listen to this. If it's something you like, then give us a call, you know? And so I don't want to believe that everyone's listening and hating it. I think the reality is that people just aren't listening or they're just talking to me because I am a pretty face. And, you know, that was kind of a hard pill to swallow this weekend.
Yeah. And as you were telling me this weekend, and, you know, we talk almost every day about life and things like that. And as your friend and, you know, as your family, I am really annoyed at people's portrayals of themselves as legitimate. And then they turn around and then they kind of shim you, you know, move along.
Right.
That goes back to a bigger thing where you and I have talked about numerous times in the past, how we have been portrayed or perceived by other people. Because we have a wrestling podcast, and, you know, I didn't talk about this before we went on air, so I'm just going to spitball this here. So please indulge me. You know how many people I've told that we have this wrestling podcast and that we come at wrestling with a different angle and a different voice, and we're not going to beat our chest and just talk about who deserves the push and that's
fantasy books.
Right. Yeah, or fantasy book. I know we do delve into that every so often, but it's more for humorous purposes more so than seriousness. The amount of people who shut me down because I utter the words wrestling podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not depressed over it because part of my life is not to take too many things personally. So it's just sort of like, okay, I know you're going to dismiss anything I'm going to say. I could literally tell you I'm a Martian and you're just going to be like, yeah. Cool. So even in my personal life, even as we talk now, I told people, certain people want to hang out with me today. I was like, I got to record the show. And their response to me was, why? It's just a podcast. And it's wrestling.
Oh, God. Oh. They must not be hanging out with you all the time, because if they were with you all the time, they'd know that this is like all we do in our lives.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not even that. It's just, I think they are upset with me that I have transitioned away from sports broadcasting and now have put forth my energies with a bigger of a passion project, which is this show, because it was from my previous show that I was able to meet you, for one, two, be able to integrate so many different topics in a sporting view. And indulge me for 5 seconds again about sports. Like, look, I don't want to talk about box scores. I don't want to talk about, about whether or not a person is going to get traded. I don't give two craps about that. I don't care about fantasy sports. That's not my bag of tricks. Okay. My bag of tricks is talking about whether or not there needs to be concussion protocols in other sports, whether or not domestic violence policies need to be more stringent. Do I care that athletes are getting sick from performance-enhancing drugs? Those are my topics of conversation. So for you to poo-poo me just because I say that's the angle this show takes in the realm of professional wrestling is not only a slap in the face to someone like Trina. It's not a slap in the face to someone like myself. It's a slap in the face to that kid that's at the show that enjoys it, not because their favorite wrestler reminds them of a superhero. It's because they want to be enveloped in this show because they appreciate the action that's going on. That's fine if you just want to talk about who's getting pushed. If that's your show, if that's your bag of tricks, if that's your shot of Jack, that's up to you. Me, that's not me. Do I care that Cesaro's not getting pushed? I do, to a point. Is it going to help me? Is it going to not let me sleep at night? No, it's not. Do I care that Roman Reigns has steadily improved his in-ring acumen? Yes. Do I give a crap that he was named number 1 on the PWI 500? I don't care. It's a list. These things are subjective. I'm not the guy pounding over 4 hours of tape to say, oh my God, look at Roman Reigns from 3 years ago and look at him now. He's improved so much. Duh. He's been working 3 years. You would hope he improves.
Right. That's how it works.
So I've been at public events where I tell people and I pitch the ideas of our podcast because these are potential financial backers that may be willing to support us in our endeavor. And I don't even mean Patreon. I mean people who have money, who are willing to sponsor our show. And the minute I say it's about the nuance of professional wrestling, they go, well, can you do it more about who's popular? And then I'll give you money for it. Look at my face.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody watching at home and listening on this podcast.
I feel like I'm in trouble.
At my salty face right now.
I really don't want. I don't want to look at your face.
I don't care about who got the win last night, who got the loss last night. I don't care who's the WWE Universal Champion, even though I love Kevin Owens. I don't give a shit that Dean Ambrose sucks as champion. You know what I care about? That they're not going to die when they're 45. You know what I care about? Passing this on to my children when I get older to say, hey, this is the beautiful part about pro wrestling is that I saw the Jake the Snake documentary last night. My God.
That's why you're all fired up.
Oh, I was fired up this morning when I watched it because Jake's my favorite wrestler, and you know this. Jake is my favorite wrestler of all time. So to see a man reclaim himself literally from the shit, from the ashes, and to make himself a known commodity and a human being again in the eyes of not just wrestling fans, but in everybody. That's the point. Those are the stories I do this show for. Those are the things I love to talk about Trina with until 3 o'clock in the morning and some of our listeners. That's what I do. If you don't like it, and if you don't like the fact that Trina and I are trying to do something that's all encompassing, you know what? Go watch something else. I don't care. And I'm done.
Yeah. There are a million other podcasts out there that are completely not like us at all. So if you don't like us and our positivity, and there are plenty out there that will serve your purposes for sure. Thank you, Damian, for that, for sure. Because it didn't occur to me really until this weekend that sometimes like people won't take it seriously. I think what we're trying to do is worthwhile. I think what we're trying to do is needed. And so, it was a bitter pill to swallow, but we're not for everybody, and not everybody is out there to promote wrestling in a positive way. And, that's just the way it is. So let me go back to my experience at Rockstar Pro, because I think after having gone to Rockstar Pro and AAW and having gone to other indie shows, I find that we might have a solution for one of the issues that we talked about on the show last week, specifically bad fans who like to chant and put themselves over at WWE shows, pay-per-views, Ring of Honor pay-per-views, or whatever. Lucky for those assholes, there is a time and place for them to be that annoying jerk that they want to be and put themselves over. And it is at indie shows. A place like Rockstar Pro needed some of these jackasses. So this person right here signed up to be the jackass of the night. And it made the show a lot more entertaining because you have such a loyal fan base over there at Rockstar Pro, and people are so dedicated and they go every month and things like that. They're a pretty respectful crowd almost too respectful, like a Japanese style crowd. Like they let the wrestlers wrestle, they let the storylines play out. Very, very respectful crowd over there at Rockstar. And the people like who they like, and they don't like scream just horrible things. And so the main event came up, and I had a couple of beers and I was like, let's make this interesting, because I owe it all to Dave Chris, because he got me out there. And so I was like, I'm going to cheer for him and I'm going to boo Sami Callihan, because I saw the night before Sami Callihan actually took the mask off of Phoenix.
Oh,
and
wow.
So which is so wrong. And I told everybody in my section about it. And so I just started screaming that Sami Callihan's the worst at the top of my lungs. And it definitely enhanced the match. Because at one point, Sami just looks right at me and gives me the finger. And so I think it added to the drama, and it occurred to me that this is one of the times where being that asshole fan who wants to put themselves over works in a situation like this. And not only does it work, it enhances the matches, and it helps the wrestlers, because they need some of this like heckling, and they need some of this screaming at this level, to make the show good and to get a reaction, so my suggestion, if you're a jerk and you go to SummerSlam and you want to complain about a stupid belt and you need an outlet for your frustrations or whatever, go to your local indie show and heckle the guys there, because they need it. They deserve it. Just, like be the jerk you want to be as loud as you can, and show these guys support, because that is where something like that is effective and helpful to wrestling. Mm-hmm. So that's the point I wanted to make, because it was great, like it just occurred to me, like as I was in the show, that I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna heckle, and I think it's gonna make the wrestlers started reacting, and it made it a better show. And then like Sami and I were going back and forth during the match. Like I really was like laying into him. One guy, because I go, Sami, I hate you so much. And then somebody in the crowd was like, no, you don't. You love him. And I was like, no, I hate him. And I was like yelling with a fan. It just made everything like a lot more dramatic. And the thing is, like right after the show, Sami came up to me. He's like, thanks for doing that. And then gave me a hug. And so it's cool. Like, that's the cool thing. Like, this is what you get at something like Rockstar Pro, where you have like, guys who are Sami Callihan level, who are just as good as Desmond Xavier and Dave Chris, and they're wrestling there and putting their hearts out. And, like they need people to go and be passionate. So go to your local indie and like be the loud, crazy fan.
Yeah.
Like this is where it's appreciated.
Yeah. So being that you're talking about this, I want to get your perspective on where exactly is the line between being that fan, like how you were at the show. Mm-hmm. What separates you from being the douchemonger at Ring of Honor or the Ring of Harambe type of fans?
Mm-hmm. Right. I think we need to be smarter about it. Be a little bit more self-aware. Because I am not typically. I'm the fan who wants to fight you if you're messing the show up for everybody.
Yes, you are. Mm-hmm.
And so I read the room pretty much. When you go to AAW, you don't need to know how to act. The crowd is a sophisticated crowd. They will tell you how to act. They will shut down a chant that's not good. They will let a funny joke get screamed. Like it's the perfect balance. Like people at AAW and the same as at PWG is that like a lot of the same people go, and these are loyal, good wrestling fans. And so there isn't much like policing that's needed, because you're allowed to like be ruckus, but people are respectful about it. In a situation like Rockstar Pro, I read the room. And I saw a bunch of passionate fans who were maybe a little too respectful of the wrestlers in the ring. And I was like, you know what? I think this probably could use like a little chanting and a little harassment and things like that. And so I started a little bit. And the funny thing is, the kid that was sitting next to me, his dad had never seen professional wrestling before.
What?
He grew up on boxing. He'd seen some MMA, but he'd never gone to a live professional wrestling show before or seen it. He just didn't know what to expect. And I was like, oh, well, okay, you're going to enjoy this. And after the show, he came up to me and he was like, you were really enjoying yourself. And I was like, yeah. He's like, that made it a lot more enjoyable for me, is what he told me. And I was just like, you know what? Then I did my job. You just got to, you have to be smart about it. You have to read the room. Like, you can try one chant and see if it goes over. Like, scream something. If it falls on deaf ears, then you're doing the wrong thing. But if you scream something at a wrestler and it's a heel and it's part of the storyline and it helps to put that person over or sell the story, then you're doing the right thing. I mean, the wrestlers will let you know. That's the thing. Like, they'll either ignore you or they will engage. So if you're screaming horrible things at a heel and he comes up to you and starts jawing back at you, then look, you're enhancing the show.
Right.
But if you're watching a match and you scream something about Harambe and nobody responds, it's because you're a fucking jackass and you shouldn't be doing that. So, like, be smarter about it. Read the room, see when it's helpful and when it's not, and just don't be a jerk. And, like, go out there and try and make it a good show for the fans and for the wrestlers. And that's the rule that you should follow. Harambe is not helping anybody.
Harambe's already dead. It's not helping anybody.
So if it's not going to help the 10-year-old kid sitting next to you or the guy in the ring who's been busting his ass, for 15 years to get noticed, don't do it. Right. But if you do enjoy that type of crowd, like a ruckus crowd of yelling at wrestlers and just really getting into it, I would suggest a Rockstar Pro, because I felt like I was watching ECW in the 90s. That's how great. I thought of you right away. Yes, right? I thought of you right away because I went to go get a drink and the guy at the bar was like, ooh, the hardcore or the Extreme Rules or whatever, the hardcore match is coming up. Like, you better get out there. And I was like, oh, he's like, yeah, because there's going to be a lot of blood. And I was like, whoa, really? Like, I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, are we talking like Brock Lesnar, like Randy Orton blood or like whatever? There's a lot of blood in Anarchy Pro. They do a lot of extreme matches as well. But what I saw at Rockstar Pro was a high-level wrestling match that also had elements of hardcore, extreme, like using props, using them effectively, using the space. Like, they did get, they did go into the crowd. They were using chairs, like people's chairs in the crowd. It was organic. It really felt, like I said, like ECW. It was very well done. So if you are somebody who complains that the WWE is too PG and too family friendly, hey, Dayton, Ohio has something for you that is exactly up your alley. Yeah. And I'm sure there are other towns and other cities. I'm sure Omaha, Nebraska has one too. Evolve. I mean, there's so many organizations out there doing good wrestling that if you just look a little bit harder, you're going to find it. And we need to start supporting these guys as much as possible.
So basically, we have to make you a heel manager, and then you can incite the crowd to be the type of fan we would hope that they turn out to be.
Right, exactly. I was the Paul Heyman for sure. I was killing Sami Callihan, and I was like getting guys' faces and stuff like that. I mean, it was so much fun. Like, that's never been me. Like, if you go to a wrestling show like with me, you'll know that I'm a respectful fan and I'm not going to try and involve myself in the show. But in places like Anarchy Pro or Rockstar Pro, it's like encouraged, like this, because this is where these guys are learning, like this is where they expect to get heckled. Like, this is where they're trying to build their loyal fan base. And so if you go there and you heckle a guy and he has a fan that's super passionate and like, you guys are screaming over each other, like, that's perfect, like this is why these guys do it, for like passion, for like people who want to see a good show. And so I can't say enough about Rockstar Pro and the guys that I saw there and the show that they put on. Just a really, really great show. Made me feel like I was family right away. I felt like I was surrounded by real wrestling fans. I felt like I was watching really good superstar talent that will be up to like main event roster or that level very soon. So that's the thing. Like, if you guys go to your local show, you are probably seeing a guy in the very early stages that might be the WWE champion at some point. There's really good talent out there.
Because you never know. I mean, you could see someone like prime example, going back to what we talked about, Dalton Castle. Will he ever make it to WWE? We don't know, but I'm interested to see where the journey takes him.
Right.
Guys like ACH, guys like anyone from New Japan, because you know what? There are other ways to be successful than in WWE. You could go to New Japan. Shoot, the way TNA is trying to fund itself now with the acquisition of Cody Rhodes now, there's rumors that Del Rio's going there. If Paige gets cut, she may go there because, Cody, Aaron Rex, aka Damian Sandow, those are guys, Derek Bateman, EC3, whatever you want to call them. Those are people that you might want to invest yourself in. Not for nothing, I'm not a Bobby Lashley fan. I was never a big time Bobby Lashley fan, but watching his work in TNA, the bits and pieces I've seen, thoroughly impressed of the improvement he's done. Okay. The Hardys have reinvented themselves. As corny, as stupid as Final Deletion was, like Trina said, it got the point across. It made you more interested than whatever was going on at TNA. So support your shows, support these indie events. I encourage people, go. It's not all about the WWE. Yes, you can say I went to NXT like we did, like you and I and Andrew did, with Matt Men. We can say we went to, I could say I've gone to Raw. You're going to go to Raw in a couple hours. I know you got to get out of here. So we can say we've been to these big shows and we've sat in pretty decent seats. But does that mean I'm better than you and you're better than me? No. Does that mean I'm going to take pictures and say, you suck, haha, deuces? No. I'm going to watch a show. I'm going to bond with the fans because that's, we make up the fan base. So what's the point of being against one another unless you're just being a douche? Universal law. Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick.
Everything else will fall in its place.
Right. If you just follow that one rule, don't be a dick. Let me touch on one more point really quick and we will, because I do have to get ready for Raw. One of the questions that was brought up when I was criticizing PWG and Battle of LA last night was that somebody said, well, if they move it to a bigger venue, don't you think that will kill the magic? And emphatically, my answer was like, no, because the magic is up to us as fans
to create it.
It doesn't matter if you are in a giant stadium. It doesn't matter if you are in a tiny, Berwyn Eagles Hall or whatever, a gymnasium or something. Like, we have the power to make the experience what it is. We have the power to put the wrestlers over, make the storyline important, make things feel electric, make things feel magical. And that's, honestly, that's a pro. I walked in there and I was like, this is something special. And it was the fans that were making it that way. And I walked in as somebody who's never been to a show before. And I was like, what can I add to this to make it better? And I added my 2 cents and everybody was happy with it. And, it made the show better. And so we have the power to do this. This is not us just like sitting on our hands and being complacent and expecting someone to put on a show. Okay, you entertain me. It's a give and take. The wrestlers are out there and they're relying on our reactions. They're relying on the way that we're receiving them. We're cheering for them, booing for them. And so we have, if not more power than the presenters of the show, the wrestlers, the organization, to make the show what it is. So use that power responsibly. And again, don't be a dick, and go support other indie organizations and go and take a bunch of your friends, go look at your calendar or whatever's going on in your town. I guarantee you there's probably a small indie show going on somewhere within 45 minutes of you. They're going on all the time. Grab a bunch of friends, go to that show and heckle the shit out of people. And it's going to be a fantastic time. And it's going to help the wrestlers because they need, they need to hear that feedback from the crowd. They need to feel the energy from the crowd. And that is where you can put your energy. Like, don't go to SummerSlam or WrestleMania and heckle a belt and ruin the situation. You ruin the experience for everybody. You ruined it for people at home. It wasn't just Damian or anybody that was there with you. If you were at Raw, you ruined it for everyone at home. Use that power somewhere else more effectively where you can help other wrestlers get over and help them develop in their careers.
Yeah. And to sum this up about using your power effectively. Because always remember, folks, and bear with the nerdism for a minute, with great power
great responsibility.
great responsibility. So listen to what Spider-Man says, okay, folks? and I say don't be a dick, but with great power comes great responsibility. And to be quite fair and be quite honest, the people at Raw when I went, sitting on their hands most of the night, those aren't the kind of fans I need to be around. I feed off the energy of those around me. I'm an energy vampire. I hate to say it that way, but if I'm surrounded by people who love what's going on and they're very energetic and they're pumped up to be there, those are the people I want to hang out with. But if you just want to be like, I just came to cheer Cena, I just came to cheer Sasha, that's it, I don't care about anybody else, then what the hell you paid the money for?
Right.
Watch it at home. Just watch it at home. Yeah. So yeah, again, folks, Last Mark Standing Podcast. Find us on iTunes and SoundCloud.com. You can tweet the show at The Last Mark Podcast, Trina at The Marky Smark, myself at Dare to Be Damian. We have a Patreon page, again, as noted, patreon.com/lastmarkstanding. Feel free to donate. Feel free to be a patron. Find out how you can actually get those tickets that Trina was talking about earlier in the show for October.
Yes, exactly.
I believe it's what, 10/7, 10/8? That's what you're saying?
It's a Friday and a Saturday. It's AEW's tournament, so there's going to be a lot of big stars. There are a lot of same people that were at PWG. You'll get to sit with me. There's stage seats, so you can see all the action. People will be seeing you, so you will be seen. So I know we talk about that being, kind of shitty, but look, I'm gonna be sitting next to you. We're gonna have a good time, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I can't go to that because I have Comic-Con, so I can't go to that. So I will be, no, one of my friends is actually going to dress up and I'm going to shout him out. Rick Castle, my go-to troll, my go-to friend of the show. He's my mouthpiece whenever we go to an event because he's the guy screaming while I'm just there like, this is amazing. Let me take this all in. So I don't have to do anything. He's my Paul Heyman. I just got to show up, but he's going to dress up as Kevin Owens because it has been brought to his attention that he does resemble a Latino Kevin Owens facially and with his beard. So he's going to rock that. And I'm going to buy him a new Kevin Owens t-shirt for Comic-Con. So yeah, again, tweet the show, Last Mark Podcast, at Dare to Be Damian, at The Marky Smark. Let us know what you think and we'll see you next time.
Bye guys.